Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Thinking Project podcast, where we interview founders and creatives to help you take the next step in your business by listening to inspired stories of these wonderful founders. I hope you enjoy this podcast and make sure to share it with your friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome, Bennett. Thanks for joining me, man.
Appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
When we met on LinkedIn and we met through our networking, I was like, yeah, this is sick. And then I just saw your post this morning about adding the new cookie flavors. And listen, like I'm a big guy and I love cookies, so I'm definitely all the way down for that. But yeah, grateful that you're here. And why don't you, like, for those who don't know you tuning in, like my audience or whoever's listening, like, tell us a little bit about your background, like what you got going on right now. I know it's Dirty Dough.
Dirty Dough.
Perfect. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Tell us what you got going on. Yeah.
Started a little bit before that. I've been my background is sales from, elementary, selling candy bars on the corner until I got kicked out to when I was knocking doors and selling lawn aeration in like middle school. And then in high school, to get through like the sports programs and pay for it, you had to go sell stuff. So it was actually cookie dough for wrestling and rugby. I was selling cookie dough, and for football, it was like these little discount cards. Then it also was cold knocking on businesses to sell banners. Because like if you want to go to football camp, you either have to have money or you have to sell banners. So I sold banners because I didn't have the money. So that's what I was doing. And I got into Cutco knives actually. And then I went and served a service mission for the Mormon church and did that for 2 years. So that was some more door knocking. And then came back and started selling pest control, building teams, recruiting teams for pest control, and then satellite, and then security. And then I jumped into solar. So that's what I did. We jumped into solar for a little bit, started a company. After 18 months later, I had sold that. And then I jumped in full time to Dirty Dough. Is what I'm doing now. So it's a cookie franchise, and just try to develop the model to really lower the barrier of entry for other potential business owners, for people that are wanting a business but they don't know how to really start it. So maybe a franchise route's a good route to go, but just trying to really simplify the processes and also bring down the costs. So in Dirty Dough, we franchise in December. We only have one store opening, but we just franchised in December, and we have our first 5 opening next month. All of those ones are going to be in Utah, but we sold 60 of them. So we have 60 stores opening soon.
That's sweet. Holy cow. So 60 stores opening like all at once, or are they going to kind of be staggered, or?
Well, we're doing about one a week till they're all open.
Okay.
So it'll take us about a year.
That's cool.
Yeah. So just to try to space them out a little bit, but also, it's still going to be some pretty fast growth for us to start.
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, we have a handful under construction right now, and they're all, the first one is June 3rd is when it's set to open up.
Wow, holy cow, that's crazy. So you're gonna be a busy man this next upcoming year, man. Kind of running all out there. So that's an interesting. So first of all, I love that you're into sales, and I think we talked about this when we met before, but like had a similar story in elementary. Like I did the same thing. I remember seeing like the a la carte, and I'm like, I know we can sell that for cheaper, because like my hometown was Walmart. I was like, I know we can go get candy for cheaper and sell it. Totally did, and then got shut down by the man, aka the school, and they would not let me do that anymore. But it's a great little way to like hustle. I think knocking for, and it's also one of those things that like it kind of goes both ways, because I love sales too, and one of my like first laws of selling is like, don't skip the lemonade stand. And essentially it's like you got to buy the lemonade, you got to buy the chocolate, the cookie dough. Like you have to, like, if you're a salesperson, in my mind, if a 10-year-old walks up to me and like they're selling something to raise money for sports,
you have to buy it.
You just like, all right, that's it. That's just what I got.
Yeah, you got to buy from other salespeople, and then people will buy from you for sure.
Yeah, it's so true. But I love your kind of path. But it's interesting that you made the switch from solar, from like the D to D, like door to door selling model into like franchise. Is that something that you've always wanted to do, or what prompted you to move into like franchising from that type of sale?
Yeah, it was Crumble's success. Just seeing another
Mm.
company just absolutely kill it. And I'm like, wow, they're destroying it. And I wanted to be involved with Crumble. They require you to be an owner operator. So they started in Utah, and I'm talking with them. I want to buy a franchise. And it's well, we don't have a franchise in Utah. Like you can't buy one here. So it's like, okay, well, where can I buy one? They're like, oh, you can move out to Albuquerque. I'm like, I'm moving to Albuquerque to start a cookie company.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll move to California. I'm going there anyway for solar. And at the time they weren't franchised there. So that's kind of that got me interested. And I wasn't able to get one because they required me to live there. And I was like, I was wanting it more as a passive investment or kind of a side thing, not my full-time
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
And that's what they required at that time. So, but that got me interested. And then just somebody from that I actually went to high school with, a little brother's friend, he was looking for some investment money. So I gave him some money to take his cookie company out of Arizona, from a delivery only out of his apartment to an actual storefront. And then later, when he had that storefront, I was trying to buy a franchise. I was like, I'll be your first franchisee here in San Diego. And anyways, he ended up, he was just burnt out, and he wanted to sell the company. So kind of after I was like excited to be a franchise, I picked up my location, negotiated my lease, everything. And he's like, I'm not going to franchise, probably going to sell the business. And I'm like, all right, I'm interested in buying then. Just kind of out of nowhere. So it was kind of, it definitely wasn't planned at all. It just was situational. I just listened to something. So this was in January of last year of 2021. And I just listened to something about people get like true wealth and true freedom from businesses and real estate, buying businesses and buying real estate. I'm like, I've never bought a business before. I do buy real estate, and I have a handful of rental properties, but I'm like, let's just go for it. Let's just jump into the market and see what happens. So it was very nerve-wracking for a while, but
Yeah.
it seems like we're pulling it off. So we'll see.
No, yeah, it looks like you're doing great, man. I love to see it. And it's interesting that because I had never heard somebody say that. I kind of one day looking at businesses and real estate as like this the same way. Like
Mhm.
one day I love to follow Andrew Gazdecki, I think is how you say his last name, and actually trying to get him on the podcast. But
Okay.
he owns a company called Micro Acquire, which is like where you can buy businesses. It's just like a marketplace, but for like SaaS
Mhm.
and tech companies. And I was like, holy cow, I want to learn more about this. And so I read a few books and started learning about everything. And it's really similar to real estate, like buying a business, like entering the business buying market is very similar
Yeah.
to like entering a real estate, and like how you, you know, um, what am I trying to say? Like evaluate them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty similar. Have you found that to be the case? Like now that you're kind of in
I,
both?
I'm not going to claim that that I know much of what I'm doing. I looked at this and I saw business that had big potential, that was selling cookies, that had zero marketing, had a terrible location, not good recipes, to be frank. Like they were cookies, they were good cookies. They weren't great. They weren't amazing. It was developed by, a 22-year-old with no baking experience. So I'm like, well, if they're selling now, the company wasn't profitable though. But I'm like, with all these factors, no marketing, not a great recipe, not a good location, the labor was astronomical. Like I'm like, I could turn this around. So that's kind of how I jumped into it. Was it's not, obviously I looked through the books and was like, okay, well, we lost money last year. But then what can we do to improve it? So I would say it's similar to kind of analyzing a deal, but at the same time, it's a little different because I guess it's more similar to like a fix and flip, right? What's the
Yeah.
business
Okay.
worth now? What can I get my rents at now? How much do I have to invest? And once I invest it, considering the time, how much can I rent it out for? So comparing it to fix and flip is I would say very accurate compared to like the last properties. I just closed on a property last week and I'm closing on another next week. These are new builds. So,
Okay.
you put your money down and they build a property for you. So there isn't.
So it's kind of nice that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
these
cool.
ones, I was just in it for the appreciation because the market's crazy. You put
Yeah. The
money down,
market's still, yeah.
the market goes up, and then you get, the pricing from 10 months ago today, and that's $70,000 more, $80,000 more, $110,000 more. So it's crazy. At
Yeah.
least the Utah market's been on fire.
Yeah, and it has no signs of slowing down. It doesn't matter what
Yeah.
happens in the economy. Like everybody's talking about recession and stuff like that. Utah doesn't care. The housing market in
It's
Utah
going.
doesn't care. Which is like that. I mean, that's a good thing, I think. It kind of sucks for like people who might not be able to get in, but like our economy isn't slowing down like when everybody else's economy is slowing down. And that's a big, I mean, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like I get it, like affordable housing. The first and only and last time I talked to a politician on my podcast, we talked about like affordable housing and like we talked a lot about that. But I mean, ultimately, it's kind of like that double-edged sword where it's like, housing really does have a big impact on an economy and a state. And like if that stays steady or at least continues to grow, then we got a good shot of not heading into like you know a big recession, right? So I think that's cool. I mean, I'm not an economist or anything, but so I love that though. I mean, it is on fire, and that's way sweet. But let me talk, like I love to geek out about sales and selling. So how has, as a small business owner, so you come from, and not small business owner, but as a business owner, right? You come from like that sales background. What helped you the most in your sales background to prepare you to be a successful business owner today?
Going from I'm going to be a salesperson, and then looking at the income potential that I had, I shifted my mentality to be, I'm going to be a professional salesperson, because if I'm going to make professional money, I need to be professional. And at the time when I jumped into door-to-door sales, I was going to college pre-med. So I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a pediatrician, and looking at making like 150 a year. Well, I went out this first summer, in a few months, I made 20 grand. I mean, in 2 months, I made like 24,000. That was my first summer. I just did the latter half. I got recruited halfway through. My second summer, I made 250. I'm like, I made 250 in like 4 or 5 months. Like, I need to take this seriously. Like I need to master sales, because I was committed to 8 years of schooling to become a pediatrician to make 150, 200 a year. So I need to put in that same amount of work to be a professional salesperson. And when you go from kind of just selling something to be a professional salesperson, you'll kind of the journey, right? And it's all about, professional sales is all about problem solving and diving in to find the problem by asking the right questions. So that has helped me immensely with business. It's anybody that I hire, any vendors that we work with, it's always, what are you after and how do I make this a win-win for you? Because that's the sales mentality, right? It's, oh, do you want to buy solar? And no, I don't. Well, why? Oh, it's too expensive. Well, what's too expensive about it? Is it the upfront payment? Is it the ongoing payment? Oh, well, it's the upfront payment. Okay, well, and you just keep diving in, because we see all these problems and you just see the surface level. And every single time there's 10 layers deep. And that's the same thing with business. It's what's going on with this cookie business? Well, why wasn't it profitable? Why aren't we doing marketing? Why are we in this location? Why are we having issues hiring? Why? And then you get the answer and then you ask it again. Well, we're not doing marketing because we don't have the money. Well, why don't we have the money? Right. And then you just keep going and you really pinpoint. So anyways, that's what I love doing at sales. I love to ask the why questions to my, they're looking for pest control. I didn't think about it. Well, it's like, what do you mean you think of it? Like, why do you need to think about it? And then, oh, it's because I need to talk to my spouse. Okay. Why do you need to talk to your spouse type of deal, without being annoying, and you do it tactfully, but you slowly uncover what the true issue is. And then that gives you the opportunity to solve it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people stop at the very surface. They don't keep pushing to what the root cause is. They just look at the surface problem.
Yeah, no, I love that, because, and that's when I know it kind of sounds funny, but what you're saying is like, if I get like, because every once in a while, like I'll get hit with a really like bad cold DM or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I know that if I hit them with like any kind of objection, that I know that if they're not a good salesperson, they'll just leave me alone.
Yeah.
And 90% of salespeople don't follow up. So if I hit them with a common objection.
Yeah.
They don't know how to handle it and they'll never follow up with me. I know that kind of sounds bad, but it's like, but it's also like, dude, like what else are we supposed to say? Like that's kind of my mentality when handling objections is like, don't take them too seriously. Like don't put a lot of weight into it. You know what I mean? Don't make it a bigger issue than it needs to be.
Yeah.
And to kind of like move and like keep going, right? Because a lot
We
of
were
salespeople
taught-
get really scared, right? Yeah, go ahead.
we were taught, you have your true objections and you have your smoke screens. So
Yeah.
you walk into RC Willie and somebody says, how can I help you? And you're there to buy a refrigerator. And what do you say typically? Just look.
Yeah, I'm just looking.
Just looking.
Yeah, I just said that's
you
last
show up
night.
to Nike, you're gonna get the shoes. You're getting the shoes. You could use the help. Hey, how can I help you? Just looking. So it's
I'm good. I'll be
that's a smoke screen, right? That's the super anyway. So one of the trainings I went through and what they taught was a lot of those like not interested, like that's a smoke screen, right? That's not a real thing because you're not interested because let's get to the because and see if we could overcome that and make it a win-win. But a lot of times you just ignore it. You kind of ignore it. You acknowledge it, but you don't have to resolve it. You acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Then if they bring it up a second time, then you can think, okay, maybe this is a true objection.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like that's kind of one of the things that I learned. And actually I kind of stole it from a psychologist, but essentially what it was he had like AIM, like, so when you have like thoughts come up, you acknowledge them, you ignore them, and then you move on or whatever. And I took that the same way, like what you're saying, right? Like you acknowledge the object, like, okay, yep, you don't have enough time. Totally get it. Right. And then, you just, manage it, whatever you have to do.
Oh, I'm in a hurry. And you're just like, oh, I totally understand. I'll be quick. And then an hour later, you're signing paperwork.
Exactly. Yeah, that was my favorite one.
That wasn't an objection. That was just a smoke screen.
I know. That was my favorite when I sold cars. Somebody's like, I don't have time to be here. I was like, cool, me either. What are you looking for? And they'd be like, oh yeah, I'm looking for this. And then an hour and a half later we're buying a car.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I don't have time. It's just like funny though. It's like I like to use those kind of like quips. But I'm interested. So like, did you ever try to like, before you went into your company that you have now, did you ever try to like move industries when you're selling? So coming from door to door, maybe into like tech or SaaS or anything, like what was that like for you? If you did that? Yeah,
I worked for, my dad has a construction business with a machine that he invented that smooths roads, that just takes the very, a micro inch off of it, all the way up to an inch. But anyways, creating a new market. So I jumped into that. I was still doing sales, but that was, construction sales to government. So very, very different. Because I was only doing a summer sales program, I had an off season, right? I had the majority of the year I wasn't.
All right, guys, I want to talk to you about another sponsor of the podcast, Norm Wilkinson, the happy health insurance guy. If you're like me, if you're a 1099 employee, an entrepreneur, it can be really, really difficult to find health insurance. And on top of all of that, who wants to spend their time looking for it? We don't know what it means. We don't know what coverage we need, or we do know what coverage we need, and we don't want to go looking and searching for it. Norm Wilkinson solves all of those problems. He's the happy health insurance guy. He'll get you a free consultation and a quote to get the right plan for your situation to protect you, your family, and ultimately your business. Go check out his website, thehappyhealthinsuranceguy.com. Links in the description below. And thank you so much for listening. It'll be the best decision you ever made. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Othership. Othership is a meditation and breathwork app that I've been using forever to cool down, to calm down, to energize, to start my day, to end my day, and everything in between. They have bite-sized exercises that are accompanied with music to help you and your breath go along with the beat so that it makes meditation and breathwork fun and easy. They have minute-long sessions or hour-long sessions, so you can go for as little or as long as you like to fit with your schedule. Breathwork, it has changed my life. Othership has changed my life. You guys won't regret this. Robbie Bent was on my podcast before. He's an amazing human being. He's got an amazing team. Go check out this app. The link to everything are in the description below. And I promise it'll be the best thing you've ever done. Thank you so much.
Working, and I always made enough money to kind of last me through there. So I also did do a marketing for my brother. He was doing like follow up, or not follow up, but sales funnels.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
helped, do that. But those are just side things because I didn't, trying to stay busy.
Yeah, right, right. I love that. Because like I wonder if you had the same a similar experience to me, and if you did, like wondering how like you approach that. Because for me, like I switched from like car sales to like tech sales and like more of like a high, you know, business to business sale. Um, but I came from that B2C, and I've had other friends who've had like similar experiences where like it was hard to transition because like people people in like the tech or like that big B2B world don't take like B2C salespeople seriously. Have you ever felt that, or like am I totally off base?
I could imagine that. I personally don't
Okay.
know if I felt that. And I think it's because I'm a professional salesperson.
Yeah.
So how are they going to know what I did before? You know, but
Yeah,
if
yeah,
it's
good
like,
point.
I'm going to sell you because I'm going to head nod and smile like they teach in pest control. Like, you want pest control, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's bullshit. Get that out of here. I'm not going to want to talk with somebody that uses stupid sales techniques on me.
Sure, sure,
But
sure,
if
sure.
somebody's asking me questions and not giving me these stupid one-liners, and um, you know, and listening and asking the right questions, I think that's where somebody's going to take you seriously or not. But like I moved away from pest control because I didn't view it as a professional sales. Um, and don't get me wrong, it's a, there's a lot of great people in pest control, a lot of high talent,
Yeah.
but it's not for me working on like being my best self and the best salesperson I can be. Pest control is a wham bam done,
Yeah.
wham bam thank you ma'am. That's what
Yeah.
it's you knock on a door, 15 minutes later they're sold and you'll never see them again. That's not a
Right.
professional sell. So that's when I wanted to get into
Yeah.
these other things, and then that's ultimately why I wanted to get into solar. Wasn't even for the money, because everybody told me, oh, you can't make that much money in solar in the summer because it takes you 4 months to install. um, Anyways, but I'm like, but it's a professional sell, and it's gonna make me more of a professional salesperson. Teach me the follow-up side of that.
Yeah. I think you're exactly right. I like that a lot because there is a difference. Like there is a difference between like that door to door sale, um, and then like, maybe a higher ticket sale. Cause like I left car sales for like the same reason. Like I wanted to be like, I was seeing all of these big business people like come in and
Mhm.
buy cars, like, selling like Hondas, which is more of the, more expensive consumer brand, Mercedes Benz, like all of these big brands, and like seeing these business people come in. And then you inevitably just start asking people, like, what do you do?
What do you
And
do? Yeah.
like none of them sell cars. So I was like, all right, well, that's a sign. Like if I
Yeah.
want to be like that, I can't sell cars my entire life.
So I think my transition was a little bit easier because I was just so heavily invested into reading every book, listening to every podcast, practicing role playing with myself, just a nerd, just a sales nerd. So like when I jumped into
Yeah.
these other things, like I knew it. I felt like I had a pretty good grasp, and I don't feel like anybody thought, oh, this guy's brand new,
Hmm,
or
hmm.
he's brand new to the government sales, or B2B sales. He was just a
Yeah.
pest control rep. But I can see, I would definitely agree that like 80-90%, if you just grabbed a pest control rep and you threw him and said sell medical software, or
Oh,
medical
yeah.
equipment, or SaaS, they're not going to
It's
be
different.
good at it.
Yeah, it's different. Well, and that's what I had to learn. Like I had to be like, and that's why I left like the auto industry for selling. And the main reason was because of that, right? Like, like sure, I can sell $150,000 car, and I did that quite frequently, right? But like that's not the same as like talking to a bunch of executives and getting that strategic alignment and all of that stuff, and just kind of being in that more, like you said, professional sale. And so I think you're
I,
right on with that.
I felt like with pest control, I could be manipulative. Like I could
A
kind of
little,
trick
yeah,
somebody into
yeah,
buying pest control because it was so quick. And it was just like, I'm going to divert your attention over here. Then I'm going to rephrase this over here. And I'm going to
yeah.
head nod and smile at you. And subconsciously, but it's like, you can't do that if you have to leave and come back. Right. If it's like, I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
sell you now, but if you can cancel tomorrow, like this isn't going to work. I actually have to make it a
Sell.
win for you.
Yep,
I
yep.
have to
You
get you
got
to
it to sell.
agree, and I have to get you to feel like it was your decision. It wasn't mine. You can't feel like I sold you. I pushed you to do this. You have to
Right.
draw the conclusion yourself. I'm just going to give you the facts and help you make an educated decision. But the
Yeah.
decision has to be coming for anyways. But with pest control, man,
Right.
it was just like I listened to Grant Cardone's the closer's survival
Survival
guide.
guide.
I
Oh,
I literally memorized those, and those are the most ridiculous
they're
closes.
crazy, bro.
And I
They're crazy,
used
bro.
them. Like somebody would tell me no, and I with pest control, and I'd say, "Do it for me."
Yeah, yeah. And
I
they'd
would
be
say
like,
that. I would say that. They're like, "If you're not going to do it for you, do it for me, man. This would really help me out, you know." And like, I would
yeah,
use those cheesy little closes, and that's where I get like the manipulation. Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
worked. It worked because it
But
was like a
I was
most
gonna
basic
say,
item. But I was like, "This is ridiculous." But that's not going to work. Like you're selling
yeah,
um, a software, and you're like, you tell another business like, do it for. They don't give a damn about you.
yeah. They don't
You
give
know
a
what I
shit.
mean? So
It's true though. It's true though. By the way, so Grant Cardone started in the auto industry, and I started in the auto industry when he was just like an auto sales trainer, like he hadn't gotten
okay.
into real estate yet. And that was the first book I got from him.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, and then I probably spent like way too much money with Grant Cardone, but it is what it is.
I mean,
It helped me out a ton
yeah, I was
at
gonna
the
say
beginning.
it. I remember my goal was to sell 400 pest control accounts. That was my first summer
Yeah,
going out,
yeah,
and my first full summer. And about halfway through, I took a break to go. I was in North Carolina, drove down to Florida. That's where my family's from. And during that break, I was like, it was like just over halfway the summer. I was only at 180 accounts. So I'd already gone over half, and I wasn't halfway to my goal yet. So I had to kick it in gear. And that's really what changed it for me, because I did hit over 400 accounts, and
yeah.
I just listened to that on the way down, and then I would pause it, and then I would say it out loud, and then I would alter it to be into
Like your
pest control terms.
personality. Yeah,
Yep. My personality plus pest control and how I do.
yeah.
I just
Okay,
wrote
yeah.
every one of those down and memorized them word for word. I probably said them, 50 times each,
Heck
because
yeah,
I
dude. Heck
definitely
yeah.
believe you have to say it out loud,
Yeah,
without reading it to memorize it, and then it just
yeah.
flows naturally. So
It
it
does,
definitely,
man.
it definitely taught me some good manipulation skills. No,
But
a lot of
like,
it's good. A lot of it's good.
well, and that's what I said. Like a lot of it's good. You could probably take like half of that book and throw it away, like in my
Uh,
opinion. But there's some that are actually like,
there
here's
were
the
some really good ones.
yeah,
Yeah.
there are some really good ones here. But here's the dichotomy of sales, like in my opinion. Like, and this is what I learned. Like, maybe like, and maybe you saw this as well. But like the hard part about sales is like, for the most part, like, and I've even seen this in my big B2B sales, because I think you're
Mhm.
right. Yeah, do it for me. Like, you can't say that on a $150,000 business deal. Like,
Yeah.
that CEO is gonna like kick you out of the room.
Yeah.
But like, the dichotomy of selling for me is, if they're not gonna do it with me, they're probably gonna do it with somebody else, right?
Yep.
And that's the hard part, and that's where people start like, me including me at the beginning, like going to Greg Cardone or going to like Joe Verde, like stuff, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And like trying to say anything, right? um
Yeah.
but to your point before, like a professional salesperson, what you mentioned before, and I really loved it, was, you know helping people understand that, they need this for them, right?
Mhm.
Not for me, right? And Jeffrey Gitmer, famous salesperson or whatever, sales trainer, he said people don't love to be sold, but they love to buy.
Yep.
And I'm sure you've heard that, but that's kind
Yeah.
of the epitome of a salesperson, right? Like,
Yep.
helping people buy.
Yeah. But if it's kind of like, what, well, would you, I mean, you could pit people in corners, and like, well, would this
Yeah.
make sense? Well, would this make sense? Okay, well then obviously my product would make sense, and that's the only other way. It's like, no, don't
Yeah. Chill.
don't
Yeah,
do that.
like
People
relax.
people don't like that. People know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know.
yeah, absolutely. And that's the great that yeah, people do know what you're doing. So to your point, because I love this. Like when I talk to people about sales, and when I'm in my like sales mastermind group, we talk about selling with empathy, right? And like reaching
Mhm.
out to people, like meeting them where they are, helping them uncover problems. But like, the most important part of the sales process, and what you were talking about, is like qualifying, like figuring out what's going on. And the opposite of qualifying is disqualifying. And I think
Yeah.
salespeople are afraid to disqualify
Yeah.
people, right? Like we are obviously not a good fit, and that's totally fine. Like,
You
let's,
have that the commission breath, right? You're just kind of like,
yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
I'm gonna bend over backwards and make this sell, but it's like, it has to be a win-win, definitely a win for
Yeah,
them, but it also has to be win for you and your company, or else
I agree.
you're just entering into a partnership that one person or both people eventually will probably resent each other.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, if you get the wrong customer through there, my philosophy with that, and my experience with that is like, if you get the wrong client, you almost always lose money, and you almost
Mhm.
always get a bad like review,
Yep.
and we still have to deal with each other for however long this contract is
Yeah.
going to last, right? Like, that's not fun for me. I don't want to do that. And yeah, and I think you're right. Like, I love that commission breath. I heard that. But to, going back to this, like, one of the things that I really learned from that book, that Closer Survival Guide, was the takeaway close. And it's that idea, right? Like, hey, like, we're probably not a good fit. And he was using it as like a manipulation tactic. But when
Yeah.
I learned that it was like an actual, like, hey, we probably shouldn't do business, I actually closed more clients and made more money with like
Mhm.
higher quality clients, because I wasn't afraid to like disqualify people,
Yeah.
or like just be like, hey, this is too much for you. Like, I totally understand. And by the way, no problem. Like, here's another resource you can go that would probably solve your issue better. And like,
Mhm.
we'll shake hands and be friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Making them want you definitely, that definitely works.
Yeah.
But you have to have the confidence, which most salespeople, as
Yeah.
you're beginning, you're like, well, I would never say that, because what if they tell me no, and they fear
Yeah.
the no, but once you
Right.
get
Right. Right.
10,000 no's, 20,000 no's, you're just like, oh, whatever. It's another
Yeah.
no. Who cares?
Yeah. I know, dude. I totally agree. And but it's kind of like, yeah, the confidence. I love that you brought that up. How do you build confidence as a salesperson?
Um, Education.
I love that.
I mean, people. Well, at least in that, I'm speaking mainly to the summer sales Utah kind of culture, and people come out, and it's seen as, and as well, stepping stone, I guess, to whatever their career is going to be, which is fine. I think it is the best stepping stone out there. It teaches you the
Yeah.
skills, but people are like, "Oh, I want to make 100 grand my first summer," and it's like, okay, what other options do you have to make $100,000 in a few months?
Mhm.
You could be a freaking neurosurgeon. Okay, what is the schooling and the education required to do that? And then it's like, okay, we'll put that, like, you have to have that mindset of like, if I'm going to make that much money, I have to bring that much value. And in any other profession, including sales, so not in all professions, you have to be educated and know that. But for whatever
Yeah.
reason, people think they could just jump into sales, and it's like, you have it or you don't. It's natural. I'm not a natural salesperson. It's like, well, I don't
No
I
one
ever
is.
talk to
Yeah.
people in the freaking grocery store, like, who's a natural doctor? Like,
Yeah.
what does that mean? Who's a natural lawyer? You're like, yeah, you can be born with a predisposition of like communication or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
like, I want to be a doctor. I got nauseous when I saw blood. I just I
Yeah.
just wanted
Probably
to do it
shouldn't.
because of the money, right? So like, I wasn't
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wasn't a boring doctor, but nobody is. But I'm on the lower spectrum, right? But I'm sure I could have overcome that. But with sales, that's people. A lot of people think like, oh, I wasn't born that way. I'm not an extrovert.
Yes.
I'm like, dude, I'm not an extrovert.
Yeah.
Like, I don't talk to anybody. I ask
Yeah.
any of my clients. I don't ask them about their pets or their animals or their dog or their family, because I'm not there for that. Like, I don't
Yeah.
build
Yeah.
the rapport, but for whatever reason, it's worked for me, because like, I just get straight down to the point.
Yeah.
And I mean, you kind of sell how you want to be sold, and then and that's how
Right.
I want to be sold. I don't want to talk about my kids with somebody who's trying to sell me a card. I'm just like,
Yeah. I like, let's
it
just get
doesn't
down to the point.
pertain to
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Let's
just
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 go.
give me the
Yeah.
facts and let me make a
Yeah.
decision.
I like that, because no, and that's so two things that you brought up. The first thing, because the second thing's kind of big and I want to kind of dive into that one. But the first thing that you brought up is like, yeah, like personalities change. Like when I was in high school, I was totally an extrovert, could make friends with like anybody. Now I'm kind of like more reserved. And I can
Mm.
still like work a room, like if we're networking, like I'll still do that. But like it definitely is something that I have to turn on more now than like when I was
Yeah.
younger. And yeah, and that's also why there's a million salespeople, is because like this person might not get along with me, and I got to be cool with that. Like, but because there's 100 other people that will, and so you know what I mean, just kind of moving down the
Mhm.
road, and I like that. I think that's a great way to do it. Like, I think salespeople get scared because they think they have to sell everybody,
Yeah.
and I just don't, I don't know. I mean, I might be wrong here, but I just don't live by that. Like, so I'm okay with knowing that, like, for me, some people aren't going to work. And
Yep.
like, I just got to be cool with that, you know? Okay. The second thing that I wanted to bring up is, you mentioned this earlier and just brought it up again. And it reminded me, like, I want to talk about this. The idea that, like, people really do think that, like, you don't need to go to college, just go sell something and make $1 million a year. And I'm like, no, like, you
Yeah.
still have to pay to play. You still got to, like, put in the work. You got to learn. Like, that's why I don't subscribe to, like, the college bashing, is because I don't think college is for everybody. I think college is for some people, not for other people. But the problem we get into is this right here. People
Mhm.
think they can just run in here and do whatever the hell they want, not learn anything, and make $1 million or
Mhm.
$100,000 in a summer. Like, that's not real, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. People, I like that you said you're not into the college basketball, because I'm like, oh, maybe I'm a little bit of a college basher. I dropped out when I had one semester left, just to stick it to the man.
Well, no, like, but I'm not either way. Like, I'm
but
not
I
like,
agree with you on that, of
yeah,
like, you can't leave college, because I that gets misinterpreted all the time. It's like, oh,
yeah,
well, Mark Zuckerberg left college. Well, it's like, well, it wasn't because he was dumb. It wasn't because he was lazy. It wasn't because he
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
make it
yeah.
to class.
Right.
It was because he had a better opportunity,
Yeah,
because he's through education, right? He educated himself through coding or whatever the hell he was doing.
yeah,
But people are like, oh, I don't need that. I could just go do X, Y, Z. It's like, well, if you put the time in to learn, you can, like, but you need
yeah,
to be a master of what you're doing. So whether
yeah.
that's college or Audible books and YouTube, but like, as silly as it sounds, like, you have to put the time in, even if it's just the YouTube education. There's so much education out there. You can do it, but you have to put in the time and look at it as I'm skipping college, and I'm going to replace all the time I was going to put in college into this other form of education,
Right, right. And
whatever
then,
that may
yeah,
be.
yeah. And so that's kind of where I live in, like the reason I don't, well, two reasons. Like, one, I do have a degree and almost done with my second one. But like, the second thing is like, is that point. It's like, yeah, Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of Harvard. Like,
Mhm.
I couldn't get into Harvard in the first place. So
Yeah.
that's the first difference between me and Mark Zuckerberg. And then the second difference is, he dropped out of Harvard and then, like, literally spent twice the amount of time
Mhm.
coding and building Facebook than he would have spent in the classroom. So it's like, it's that old adage that's like, I left my 9 to 5 to work 24/7 on my own. Right. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, it's,
No, that's what happens. And I see that with kids that don't try hard, and they're like, oh, well, you
yeah.
dropped out, right? And it's like, yeah, well, I dropped out with a 4.0, like, I was doing fine. I was
Yeah.
doing fine. I was going to graduate.
Yeah.
But I chose to educate myself in a different way. I didn't
Yeah.
just say I'm not going to educate myself because there's something easier. It's just something that's more applicable to what I want to do, which was business and sales. And I mean, find a good program that teaches you business and sales quicker than YouTube and
Just doing
Audible books and
it.
knocking doors. And I would love to do that.
Right. Well, that's why I'm always like, the only time I'm really critical of college is like specific degrees. And the one I'm most critical of is like a professional sales degree. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like that's probably the biggest waste of money that you could
See,
spend
I've
in
heard of
college.
that and it sounds appealing. I don't know anything about it though. So I'm like, oh,
Well,
if I knew about that, I might go into that. But so I'm
yeah.
interested to why you say that.
Well, because here's my thing is like, so you spent 4 years for a degree and you spent
Mhm.
however much money. It could have been even less than a normal degree. Could have been 20 grand or something for 4 years, which is pretty cheap. But you spent 4 years not talking to live human beings,
Mm.
trying to
Yeah,
exchange value with them. Like, if you know what I mean, you would have been better off selling cars for 6 months. You probably learned more about sales
for
and
sure.
human, selling pest control or selling cars before you ever went in there. So I'm not saying it's a bad program. I'm just saying I think it's like, I'm sure you learn a
It's
lot
a
in there.
late, yeah. You can get the same information in a shorter amount of time by just practicing it.
Yeah, because like, I hired somebody out of that program when I was in cars. Like, they were like, "Oh yeah, I just spent 4." And so I was just curious. I was like, "All right, well, let's talk about your degree then. Like, what did you learn and how to sell?" And he said a few things and I was like, "Yeah, but that's not real life. Like, you can't." It's like reading the Grant Cardone book. I'm like, "You couldn't actually say that to somebody." Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
you
And
have to
then,
jump into the experience.
and then I asked him, "So like, what did you sell? What did you end up selling, or like, what do you want to sell? He's like, oh, we didn't sell anything and I have no clue what I want to do. And it's like, man, you're in the wrong, you're in the wrong gig. I don't know. That's just why I'm just really critical of it. Like, if you do it, like, it's
Right.
fine. But if you wanted to actually learn sales, go find somebody who will let you be an SDR, or go sell pest, or go sell cars, or go sell phones. Like, you'll learn more
Mhm.
about human nature and like psychology than you would in a
Yeah.
classroom like that.
Jumping industries and selling different products, it's always you just get out there and you do it. Then you get objections, and then you go recraft your pitch to overcome those objections before you get thrown at them. And then they give you other objections, and then you go recraft your pitch again. And then every single time you get an objection, it's what can I do differently to not get this objection in the first place?
Right.
And then you slowly, I mean, or even relatively quickly, like you
Yeah.
just going and selling a product or an idea, like this goes straight to entrepreneurship. You know, people just jump into a
Right.
business. It's like, well, did you test it? Did you go try to sell it first? Did people buy
Yeah.
it? You know, would people give
Yeah.
you money for it? And a lot of the time it's like, oh yeah, my grandma told me yes. It's like, well, did your grandma write you a check? You know, like
Yeah.
people like your idea, but are they actually buying it? And
Yeah.
if not, because typically they don't, why? And then go back to the drawing board and fix that problem, and
Mhm.
then go take it.
Mhm.
So like I've loved being the owner of a company as a salesperson, because I go sell a franchise and I get objections. And then what do? Yeah, you know, am I going to try to bull crap my way through an answer? No, I'm not. What I'm going to do is go on the back end and ask somebody in operations who works for me, how do we fix this so I don't get this
Mhm.
objection anymore? And then I can craft a business around sales. Kind of like,
Yeah.
I mean, Pivot does such a good job about that, right? They are not a security company. They are a sales force that happens to sell security. And it's so sales oriented that it's like, oh, well, what do customers like the best? The doorbell camera. Well, let's go make the best doorbell camera, right?
Yeah.
A lot of companies are like, let's just make what's cool and then hire people to go sell it. But it's like, well, no, it's really beneficial to get that feedback from the salespeople. This is what the customer wants, because who knows it
Yeah.
better than the salesperson?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. No, I love that because it just points out so many things that are necessary to learn the profession of selling. And then, yeah,
Mhm.
and like, I think the best way you learn selling is just by doing it, like finding a good mentor, like you're saying. Like, and the other thing I don't like about college bashing is people think that, like, not only can they not go to college and make $1 million selling, but like that they don't have to put the time or money into it. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like, when I first
Yeah.
started selling, I had to get a mentor, and they kind of did it in a weird way. Like, we had to split all of our deals in car sales, which some people are like, oh, that's stealing or whatever. But I took it as like, hey, look, I'm not paying for college. I'm gonna pay to learn. If I'm gonna give this guy half a
Mhm.
deal, then everything that this guy knows, I am gonna
Yeah.
learn. You know what I mean? So it just was
Oh,
another
that's
education
huge.
thing. Yeah.
That's huge. Not just the education, but the money. It's like, wait, you just saved how much by not going to college? Well, reinvest that in yourself.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And then, like, yeah, so selling for me is one of those things that, like, I think you just find a really good mentor, you join a nice community where you can bounce ideas off of each other,
Yeah.
you hang out with other salespeople and learn from each other,
It
and then you get out there and do it.
seems to be the oldest profession. So there's like more freaking information about sales than anything else. I feel like maybe that's just because what I'm
That's true.
studying, but it is there's so many good books on
Oh yeah.
diving into the psychology of selling. Right. I mean, that's
Yeah.
actually a book, The Psychology of Selling by Brian
Yeah.
Tracy. That was one of the great books. But
Great
like,
book. Great book.
what are people looking for? And then again, like when I was selling pest control to when I started selling solar, like my solar pitch, I had slides, right? It's
Uh-huh.
kind of like a little pitch deck that I took. And the first slide was, why are you meeting with me? You know, why did you accept the appointment? Oh, well, because I'm interested in solar. Okay. Why are you interested in solar? Oh, my
Yeah,
neighbor has
yeah.
it. Oh, does your neighbor like it? Yeah. Why does their neighbor like it? Oh, because they save money. Okay. So you're probably looking to save some money. Yeah. Why else? What else are you hoping to get from this meeting? Like, why'd you
Yeah.
accept this meeting? Well, I don't know. I just wanted to get some education on. Okay. Well, education for what? Oh, well, maybe I might want to buy it someday. Okay. So you get all of everything that they want in the first slide. And then on the bottom half of the first slide, it's we live in San Diego. Why haven't you gone solar yet? Like, what are you waiting on?
Right.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
because my neighbor got this neighbor got scammed. Oh, because I don't have the money. Oh, because I'm moving soon. Okay, well, why else? Oh, well, and then they just keep going.
Whatever,
But in that first slide, I know everything they want and everything they don't want. And then I go, okay, well, what I'm going to do, and then I take them through the expectations. I'm going to explain solar. I'm going to go through the numbers, and then I'm going to ask you for a yes or no. However, like I already know, because in that first slide, it's like, well, I want to save money. And it's not like, cool. It's, oh, how much money do you want to save? Typically we save our clients 20 to 30% with no money down. Would that make you happy? Yes. They say, yes, I have to sell because I know I'm saving them 50%.
Yeah.
So I'm setting the expectation. But I know that. So then in my expectation slide, my second slide, it's, now I know what you want, and I'm going to end the presentation if I don't think I can get you what you want, because I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. But if I get to the numbers, solar is math, right? It's just a yes or no. If the math is in your favor, and if it's a yes, if the math's in your favor, you're going to tell me yes. If it's not, I'm not even going to ask you to buy because I already know what you want. And then it's like, it just takes off the pressure. Like they know that I'm not going to ask them to buy something they don't want. I know what they want. I promise them I'm only going to offer them what they want, or else I'm going to get out because I value my time and I value their time. Yeah. And a lot of people won't do that.
Right. Yeah. Which blows my mind. It's like, dude, the faster we can get and I'm not saying, and there's a fine line, right? Like you don't want to disqualify somebody because you did a shitty job at qualifying them. Right. But if you've done everything and this isn't a fit, then you shouldn't be afraid to leave, because I have more people ready to go. I have more people ready to go.
And it really is just a waste of time. But I just feel like people kind of dance around issues, and they're like, hopefully this person told me that they only want an American made panel and I have a Chinese panel, but hopefully I'm just going to overcome it later in the pitch. It's dude, no, just tackle it. Just see what's going on. Don't give an hour presentation and then say, oh, by the way, they're only Chinese made, but blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? It's
that's dumb. Yeah.
I feel like people just are crossing their fingers. At the end of the sell, that maybe they're going to change their mind on that objection. You're like, just overcome it. Out. And if you can't, get out of there. You're wasting their time.
That would be my first question. We only like American made panels. Is that a deal breaker for you, or are you open to other options if it made sense? That's my favorite. That was my favorite question in the car world. I have to have red. I go, okay, cool. So red is a deal. So if I'm understanding you correctly, red is a deal breaker. Or if I had another car that made sense, would you take that? And most of the time I got, well, if it was a good deal, then sure. Then okay, cool. So red really was.
What's a good deal for you, right?
Yeah. And then you kind of explore. Yeah.
But it's nice to know that you have the sell in the first 5 minutes, and the rest is just a formality of education. But it's I know what you want. I know what you don't want. Obviously, I know with all that information if I can give it to you or not.
Right.
So if I can, then it's a sell, and we're 5 minutes in the presentation. Now I'm not going to skip over my warranties, because I have to do it. But the rest is just a formality and making them feel more comfortable. But it's I have the sell because I can give them what they want, and it's a win for them.
Yeah, exactly. No, I couldn't agree more, because I've never been a fan. Ever since I learned the professional sale, right? Like you said, I've never been a fan of hard closing. To me, closing is just reminding people okay, okay, Bennett, sounds like, this is what you'd be paying. This is what you said you wanted. We got it all. It all lines up. I just need your okay right here. We'll get it all ready to go.
It's just,
and then
it's
not a,
it's not a, I'm going to ask you to buy and you're going to give me objections. Right. There are no objections when I ask you to buy, and you don't even ask them to buy. You just say, this is the next step in this process. Right. And they're like, cool.
That's great. Yeah. Next step is to, get this all filled out.
Against that closer survivor guide, right? This closer survivor guide is, how do you just keep asking them to buy? And it's
wearing them down.
If you did the presentation correctly, so people shadow you, right, in sales. And I get this all the time. And I'm sure I've said this to other people. Man, that was a lay down, man, that was the easiest sell. And then you go watch them do another one, and then another one. You're like, man, you're the luckiest human alive.
Yeah, you're like,
nobody gives you objections. You are walking on water, man. I could sell what you sell if I knocked on the same door as you knocked. And you're like, what? You really think I'm just selling 10 pest control accounts in a day because I got 10 lucky customers? You know what I mean? It's
you're like, no.
It's I'm not getting objections, but because of my sales process, I'm not getting objections. It's not because these are easy sells. It's because I've framed it right. So when I ask them to buy, or it comes to make that decision, it seems like it's easy because you've walked them through it. But everybody else is like, in a new rookie, they're like, oh, that was so easy. That was so easy. Like you got so lucky.
Anybody can do this. Anybody,
you're like, all right, go do it, man.
Yeah, all right, cool. Sounds good to me. Yeah.
I'll see you tomorrow when you get 0 sales.
Come back. Yeah, come back and we'll shout out tomorrow. All right. No, I love that because you're absolutely right. And like a good sales process handles objections like before they come. Like I like to ask questions that are around potential objections. So like one of my favorites is like, who are you comparing me against? Because I don't want that. I don't want the objection of like, well, I still got to go look other places. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to handle that before it even becomes an issue.
Yeah. And again, I think it's just the fear of most people are like, well, I don't want to know because what if like, I've heard this in actual sales training. You don't want to bring up objections that they don't already have. And it's like, well, I don't care if they don't know, like solar moving is a big objection. What if they don't ask me during my presentation about moving? Does that mean I shouldn't bring it up because I don't want to place that worry in their mind? Well, no, I'm going to bring it up because they're going to get that worry later on. Like,
whether or not you're there. Yeah.
But people are scared to do that because they're like, well, no, if I bring up like, who are you comparing me against? That is telling them subconsciously to go compare me with people. And it's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. They're going to compare you. They're going to compare you.
Yeah. They're going to, that was always my thing.
Yeah.
People are going to shop me anyway. Like, so I might as well be ready for it and let me have my say first, right? Like, let me set up what I want to set up. Yep. Like, I'm going to control the conversation with that question, not the other way around, because like when they go compare, they're going to remember me. They're going to remember that they had a good experience and they're going to meet someone who's, or whatever happens, right? Like I don't know.
And nobody else is asking them that question. Nobody else is putting these, objections in their mind to overcome them. Everybody else is kind of just avoiding. Like it's a reactive approach where I think sales should definitely be a proactive approach. It's not like, let me wait for the objection and then try to put out the fire. Once somebody's told you no, to then go back and get a yes, that's a lot harder than just to never ask them until they're ready and then get the yes the first time. That's so much easier. Because when somebody says no, it's hard to turn them.
It is very difficult. I mean, and if you do turn them, it takes lots of follow-up, right?
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing, but I love your point. Yeah. You just I just like address everything up front. Like, cause I'd rather know. And by the way, if somebody said like, like even in my sale right now, who are you comparing me to? Oh, we're comparing you against Attentive. And I go, I would just dive into that. Oh, Attentive's great. Tell me what you like about them. Tell me how the first meeting went, right? Oh, we haven't had a first meeting. Oh, actually the first, you know what I mean? Like,
you want the information and we get scared of it as new salespeople. We get scared of like, oh, I don't want to talk about that.
Well, and here's also why I like it, because a good salesperson, and I'm sure you know this, right? But a good salesperson doesn't bash like their competitors.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And so if I go in there and like you're comparing me against Toyota, oh man, well, it sounds like you're gonna have a really tough decision because those are both great cars. And then they go meet the Toyota salesperson, they're definitely gonna bash me.
Yeah.
And that's
and then who do they want to do business with?
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Right.
Somebody that's negative about everything, or somebody that's like, because here's the other like fear of sales is like, salespeople are so worried about like getting the sell that you try to use that manipulation. You don't want to call it as it is. And the reality is Toyota is a great car. So when you tell them Toyota is a great car, they trust you because that's true. They know it's true. If you say, oh, well, Toyota's it's a car, right? But their warranties and yada, yada, yada. And it's like, they know Toyota is a good car. You're not going to convince them otherwise.
Right.
And the more you try, the more you discredit yourself.
Yeah.
The more I always try to find those like little pieces that I can tell them bad news that no other salesperson would tell them, because that's going to make them trust me. If I tell them, look, this is what gives solar a black eye. These are the problems you want to avoid. And like, or, hey, is it, looks like your panel is better than their panel or whatever. It's like, I mean, in reality, they're pretty much the same. Even if mine is a little bit better, like there's not much difference. That's not how you should make your decision.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, wow, why would he tell me that? That's hurting him. That's hurting him. but it's not hurting me. It's building trust, which helps me more than the stupid panel. Right.
Yeah,
It's like,
no, it's true though. Like it's this counterintuitive approach to life and sales where you like I just compare it to like chasing a chicken. Like I grew up in Iowa, right? Like if you try to chase a chicken, it runs away from you. Like you'll never catch it, right? The way you catch a chicken is like, you build a place for them to come, you take care of them and then they come, right? And to that, like that questioning is like kind of the same way. Like I'm just reinforcing that, of course, Bennett, of course you know how to make a good decision. You're looking at Honda and Toyota, right? And so I'm going to just tell you why we're different, right? Because like that's what info you need. So yeah, here's what we got to offer. And then they're going to meet every other shitty salesperson and probably going to come back. You know what I mean?
It is so much about that trust. So if you can throw in something that nobody else will say because it in a way hurts you, then it's like, oh, I trust this guy. He's giving me the good, the bad, and the ugly, even about his own company.
Right.
And it's like, yes, that is hurting me to an extent, but I'm making up for it in the trust that I just gained, which is actually offsetting it. And it is helping me more in the sell. So it's like you take one step back to take two steps forward, because trust is what they're going to go for. They're going to go off of the trust. They're not going to go off of your panel's a little bit better or your car's a little bit better. Right?
Or your software, go off of, or whatever.
Is this guy going to screw me over? Is he a slimy salesperson?
Yeah, exactly. They're like, oh no, this guy gets it, right? He can actually help me and he does care because he's going to tell me the truth. Like, he's going to tell me the truth.
So anytime you can slide those little, like, this is the bad part about my company. Like those are good. Those are really good to do.
I think so. I think like,
tell them the cons. Don't just tell them the pros, tell them the cons.
Right. You're right.
And then let them weigh it out.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, like when it's kind of like when you teach like children a principle, like I would rather me teach my kids something than them learn it at school from other 5-year-olds who don't know what the hell's going on. So of course, if you're going to come talk to me about my company, I'm going to tell you what I think is wrong with it, or like some of the cons that we've heard from our people. And then, but that also allows me to control the narrative a little bit, right? Like, yes, this is an issue, but this is also what we're doing about it. This is also where we win.
Yeah, you don't want them to go look at reviews and then they're like coming up with rejection. If Honda has a recall, you bring it up, like, hey, you've probably seen this on the news. Let me tell you about it.
Right. Yeah. You control. It's like that scene in The Office. He's like, either the story, you control the story, or the story controls you. I don't know. I love The Office, but dude, I'm really grateful. I know we're running on time, so I think we'll skip the lightning round, but like, dude, I'm really grateful for you and all your wisdom.
Well, I appreciate it. It was fun being on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.